After the high of Atalanta on Wednesday night, Celtic are back in league action this Sunday as they take on Motherwell at Fir Park in a 3 o'clock kick-off. This is Tino with the Countdown to Kick-Off show, joined here for this one by Brydo. Brydo, your initial thoughts ahead of Sunday's game?
How you doing, mate? Nice to be back on. Initial thoughts would just be, after enjoying a good result midweek, to just get back to business domestically. Fir Park's always it's had a few absolute belters over the years, hasn't it, with last minute goals on more than a few occasions. So I'm not sure I necessarily want that kind of excitement, but I just want to have a kind of dominating performance and just get the game done, get the points in the bag, and move on to the next game.
How hard is it, Brydo, to go from the highs of what happened in Bergamo? And you know what? It was an incredible performance. There's been a lot of praise thrown Celtic's way, and rightly so. I think they dug deep. I think they showed a different side to themselves, and I think they deserve all the credit coming. But there's the euphoria of getting a result like that, and then having to come back and deal with the bread and butter, your standard domestic stuff. And this is no disrespect to Motherwell or anyone else we may be facing. It's just natural there'll be a come down from that high level of football to the more regular stuff. So how do you think the players deal with such a thing?
I mean, it is difficult, I think. There's a lot of energy expended both physically and mentally, and there's also the travelling involved as well. But I mean, a lot of the players have been used to that for a long, long time. Perhaps more physically, I think, because that was a lot of running, a lot of effort to get that result, and we rightly deserved it. I think it'll just be a case of the manager just letting them know, reminding them exactly what we need to do, take care of business, and then perhaps he might help them out if with a bit of squad rotation, perhaps if he thinks that is needed. He'll be able to judge that well, these sports scientist guys, and who needs what rest and who can start and hopefully produce the goods. But I think, yeah, mentally it'll be quite tough as well. But when you're at Celtic, this is what you've got to do, and as fans, we're not going to give them much leeway about it, are we? Let's be honest. We're not going to say, we'll take a point at Fir Park because we got a good result midweek. It just doesn't happen, and that's the standards we set for ourselves, and it's the standards we set for the players. So they've just got to go on with it and get the job done, mate, which they have done over the years. We can't say they haven't. So
exactly. There's nothing else for it, but I know you've just got to crack on. Before we kick on properly, big thank you and a big welcome to everyone that's joining us on the live. We've got Sean, we've got Lubo's Left Peg, Paul Allen, James, Paul Brady, and Mazar has just joined us as well. So thanks as always for joining us on the pre-match show. And as always, please do let myself and Brydo know any comments or questions. We'll be here for half an hour, so you've got 27 minutes, give or take. Let us know any thoughts, and we'll try and address them throughout the show. Brydo, I've mentioned the players there and how they adjust and how they adapt to what Sunday presents in terms of a challenge. But how much credit does Brendan Rodgers deserve? He got all the grief after Dortmund, and rightly so, I would say. I think he got it wrong. But by the other side of that coin, you should get all the praise when you get things right. And he got it right, didn't he?
He absolutely did get it right. And to be honest, I mean, I put just about 100% to blame on Rodgers for the Dortmund game. I thought he set his players up to fail. And probably worse than that, he didn't change it even when he was watching the slaughter happen in front of his eyes. He just let it happen. And there was no learning from that, and I felt really let down by him, because I think he is a very intelligent coach. I think he's intelligent tactically, but that's more than once we've seen it. And I thought we'd actually seen the end of that, because last year we got a hint of it against Feyenoord. We were fairly resolute until a kind of long distance shot that Joe Hart should have saved. Then the red cards, obviously, but we were still within the game. The Lazio games, Atletico Madrid, with the exception of the one away from home with 10 men for most of it. So we were resolute, and we were, aggressive, and we were very organised. It wasn't that kind of gung-ho type theory, if you like, that has been accountable for Dortmund and things like that. So I just think that it's there, and I don't know why he didn't do it in Dortmund. That was the biggest surprise. So it's not a crazy surprise that this happened midweek, but it's a really, really top opposition, and so he deserves the credit because he does get the stick, and it's only fair. Just like with players, I was quite hard on Trusty and stuff like that, and I thought that he had an excellent game, there may be factors that help his game. Perhaps he wasn't as isolated. The fullbacks were tighter and closer to him. There was a bit more protection. Perhaps that's what he needed to get a performance like that and just deal with stuff as he sees it, as opposed to having to go and move the ball and make things happen from the back. So it's a different type of game for these players. But you're right, the manager has picked the right team and he got it pretty much spot on. He made the changes at the right time as well. So thankfully that's the case, and thankfully that's what he's doing, and more of it, please, because it was a great feeling, a really good feeling getting the result in.
Yeah, and it was nervy towards the end, wasn't it? Great when the whistle goes, but it's tense, it's fraught watching these games play out. The manager himself and the approach to the game, he'd been a bit spiky. That the word pragmatism kept coming up and words of that nature, and he wasn't having it. He basically said his philosophy in 25 plus years as a coach has been aggressive and attacking, and he's not going to change that now. And people could debate whether he should or shouldn't. But if you've spent your whole coaching career playing in a certain way, there's not many managers, if any, would all of a sudden say, I'm going to switch it and start doing something different. So we didn't expect him to rip up the playbook as such, but he had to make changes. And I made the suggestion, and whether how accurate it is or not, I don't know, but I made the suggestion that he was saying one thing to the press and the media, but certainly giving his players some slightly different messages. And I think he just made some tweaks. But one of the biggest tweaks, well, two for me, starting Adamida is a very obvious sign that he's doing something different. He wants a big target man to occupy their centre halves and to hold the ball up where possible. So that's a very apparent thing that we can all see. But the other thing that many folks picked up on was Celtic still adopted a relatively high press, but unlike Dortmund, when they pressed in twos and threes, meaning that a quick 1-2 round you left you completely outnumbered, they were just pressing in one. Just one guy was going for it, and if he didn't steal it, he was retreating back into position. It was very disciplined, and it was very clear to see, and you could see that was playing on instruction from the manager. You used the term there, set up to fail, and I think that's pretty accurate. I think it's clear, and it might sound harsh, but I think it's clear that he saw fit to play in a certain way against Dortmund. There was a lot of there was a real high about Celtic at the time. I think we'd won 9 games in the bounce, including the first game against Slovan Bratislava. Things were cooking with gas, and I think he was loath to change that. And to an extent, you can understand why. I think he thought, let's go for it, regardless of the opposition. Hindsight's a great thing. But the most important thing for all of us was that he learned from it and was seen to have learned from it. And there's no doubt he has. As much as he's a 25-year coach in the game, he's not too stubborn that he's not going to pick up new things and evolve and change and adopt new tactics when required. So I just thought it was really refreshing that he made those changes. And you need a bit of luck on the night as well. They had some big chances at times, and sometimes if they were a couple of yards either side of the keeper, then who knows. But I think everyone played their part, and as much as you can control those games, there's elements out with your control. I think the players and the manager done everything in their grasp to try and get as a result, which was great to see. One question I'd like to ask you. You mentioned Joe Hart in passing there. Great to hear him on co-commentary, by the way, and I thought he was spot on. Kasper Schmeichel, upgrade on Joe Hart?
Yeah, I think he is. I said that at the time. I think, and the main thing is distribution-wise. I just think that that Kasper Schmeichel is by far better with the ball at his feet, by far. And he's also still playing international football, which keeps him at a level where he's not dropping off. And he's going to eventually. We know that. We've seen Craig Gordon. He's playing for Scotland. He's 94, I think now. But he's going to drop off at some point. But right now he's not. He's still deemed by Denmark to be their best goalkeeper. And Denmark are a far better, outfit than dare say England, of course. But Joe Hart. But certainly the goalkeepers that we see and we could have bought. But bought a guy who's just off the back of a major championship. Joe Hart's miles away from that. Shot stopping. Nobody will ever take away what Joe Hart done with Celtic. And it was a great send-off. But for the first time in probably a long time, a big player has left at the right time for everybody. He's not clung on. And I think that's down to him, testament to him as a person. And he said as much since he's left. So 100% it's an upgrade. I actually didn't think we were clinging on, to be honest. I mean, the saves that Kasper Schmeichel makes, I'd expect him to make. So, yeah, like I said, if they're either side, I suppose, yeah. But the thing was they weren't, and there was nothing. I don't think they played through us or created crazy wide open chances that we got lucky. I think probably much like Aberdeen at Celtic Park last week, they probably just about deserved something from the game, and I think we deserved it as well. So yeah, it was a really good professional performance, and Kasper Schmeichel was a big part of that.
I'm just scribbling down the headline, Brydo. Plucky Atalanta grab last minute draw against Glasgow Giants.
Something like that, mate.
No, I know what you're saying, that we weren't exposed in the way that we were exposed against Dortmund, and Dortmund also. Your man that scored the hat trick, he was phenomenal. Absolutely ruthless, and maybe Atalanta missed that cutting edge as well. But they've got the guy, is it Retegui? I can't remember how to pronounce it. The guy who's leading goal scorer in Serie A, scored a couple of goals for Italy recently, as well as Lookman, who scored a hat trick in a Europa League final not very long ago. They've got some talented frontmen who couldn't find a way through, and I think that's real testament to the job that Celtic's backline done. There's a few comments coming in about the backline, and it's obviously a hot topic at this moment in time. And there's a couple of suggestions, Brydo, which I wouldn't quite say that I'm on board with, but I can understand why people are asking. Brian in the comments, you'll see it in the screen, Brian McGarry, he says, when CCV's fit, I hope Brendan's thinking about 3 at the back in certain games. I don't think there's any chance he's thinking that way. I just don't. I can understand why someone might think it's an idea, but the Celtic play in a certain way, and he, as I say, he's made those tweaks for midweek there. He's not going to go 5 at the back in any way. And if you're taking those 3 at the back for a European game, you need 2 other guys, right and left, and it effectively would draw you back into being a 5 at the back. I just don't think that's how Brendan Rodgers approaches football. So I don't see it happening. But from Brian's point of view, I can see why he would ask, because all of a sudden there's a bit of faith in Austin Trusty. He really stepped into the shirt, didn't he? On Wednesday night, and all of a sudden people would be quite happy to see 3 top defenders in there. And I think Liam Scales continues to prove himself. So you can understand the angle, Brydo, but do you ever see the manager going for the 3?
Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not. No, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I get what Brian McGarry's saying in the comments, and it's not the most ridiculous shout you'll hear, but right now the manager's trying to just keep that machine going, especially at the Champions League level, and that is without a doubt having 2 fullbacks. Biggest issue was the fullbacks weren't tucking in anywhere near as much, and they weren't necessarily bombing forward. They were closer to the centre halves, which in the European game against a team of Atalanta's level, that's what we needed. We needed to protect our centre halves against, like you just said, Ademola Lookman, the other striker who's obviously the top scorer. We need to help protect those guys. They're not good enough. They're not Virgil van Dijk. They can't beat these guys one-on-one. We need to protect them. We didn't do it in Dortmund. We did do it against Atalanta. We could play any formation we like in Scotland, let's be honest, and it might look great. But the progress that we're all wanting to see as Celtic fans is what are we going to do in Europe? And that's the challenge for the manager as well. That's the progress report. How did we get on? And we're doing okay. We're doing just fine. One bad game that we can just draw a line under. Also, if you're playing 3 at the back, you're then removing a midfielder from somewhere probably. Again, that's not going to work because we're actually trying to find a way of working out what the best 3 midfielders are. Between Bernardo, Hatate, McGowan, I think deserves his chance at some point for sure. Pretty soon, I'd imagine, to work alongside McGregor and Engels. He might rest Engels, I don't know. But I think he's just never going to change. He's never changed that. He's never played that at any club he's been at. So as much as I think it would work domestically, fine, I don't think he's going to even bother tweaking with that at all.
Yeah, and thanks to Brian for putting the question up. It's an interesting one, and it's certainly worth debating. There's a variation on the theme from William Doyle. William says that he'd like to see Carter Vickers and Trusty in the middle with Scales at left back for big games to see how it works. But there's a few replies back and forth as well. He's never played at left back for Celtic since he arrived. I think he maybe...
He had one game at Dundee United, did he not? He had one game and he scored a screamer. He stepped
in a League Cup game to give him minutes, if truth be told, under Ange, before he went back out on loan. I just don't think that's where Brendan Rodgers sees him playing. And why would you play him anywhere else apart from where he's excelled? He's been brilliant. You can quote me as saying Liam Scales is limited and he might have hit his ceiling. I'm backtracking dramatically because he continues to improve week on week. He's doing it internationally for Ireland as well as scoring goals, and he continues to do it in the Champions League. And long may that continue. Really delighted with what Liam Scales has shown. So again, I can understand why folks would want to try and get all three in, but you've got to look out for other areas of the park. But let's crack on with the lineup. So in terms of the press conference updates from Brendan Rodgers, Carter Vickers and Greg Taylor are both back on the grass, to use that term, training with the first team. And he says, we've still got another day to assess them, but he's hopeful that they'll both play a part on Saturday, which is encouraging in itself. But even if both fit, I can't see any of them starting at least against Motherwell, can you?
No, I don't think there's any need to do that. There's more big games coming up. If he's talking about playing a part in it, it'd probably be coming from the bench, just to get some minutes in their legs. Hopefully, Celtic are in a position in the game that's not a risk for any of them. But certainly to start the game, I wouldn't see them messing around too much with the back four that we've seen in the last few games.
So on that note, Kasper Schmeichel's in goals, Alistair Johnson right back, Trusty to continue as right centre half, Liam Scales left centre half, and Alexbay. What do you think of Alexbay? I had questioned his defensive capability, but what do you think he brought to the party on Wednesday night?
I thought he had an excellent game. Again, a wee caveat with that. I think domestically there's so much more needed in his game, or any left or right back for Celtic, and that is going forward, which he is really good at. But it's also been able to be a bit more exposed, and I just feel like the team was set up a certain way to not fail against a team of that quality, and they set them up to actually make them all look good and give themselves as much a chance as possible. And that would be, the defence being a bit tighter together, not having to worry overly about pushing forward and doing overlaps and stuff. I think the game is very much in front of him. And although I think he is really good at the attacking part, I think he settled into the game far better just because it wasn't as complicated, if you like. He wasn't having to invert, he wasn't having to go overlaps. But on the ball and do his defensive duties, I thought he'd done very, very well. Really well, actually.
Yeah, and the same token that it was a huge night for Austin Trusty, I think it was a big night in a Celtic shirt for Alexbay, and he stood up well to the challenge, and he can be proud of that. That's a young man. I don't know, what age is he, 19, 20, something like that? To make a start against a team of, such a high calibre in the Champions League and come away with a very positive result and a very decent performance, it deserves huge credit, and I would think he would stay in for Sunday. There's a question from Lubbo's LP. He's asking, how's Alistair Johnson? Will it possibly be Tony Ralston? I watched the press conference earlier from Brendan Rodgers. He certainly didn't mention any further concerns out with Carter Vickers and Greg Taylor. Johnson, who I thought also had a really strong performance on Wednesday, he was going down with cramp and he was feeling it. And he said that mental challenge, Brydo, of playing most of the game on a yellow card. And there's that phenomenal tackle he makes when he comes crashing into Lookman with his left foot to clear out for a corner. It's high risk, high reward and all that stuff, but he absolutely nailed it. And I just think he continues to improve as well. He likes that kind of game. He's very much a guy who can go forward, but as an out-and-out raw defender, I think he's excellent. So I think he would probably start, but you can understand potentially if Tony Ralston came in just to give him a breather. Brydo, there's obviously debates in the defence. There's ongoing debates in the midfield. We can only pick 3 of them, but I think there's 5 in the mix. So let me get my head around it again. It's Callum McGregor, and it's always Callum McGregor. Then you've got Arnie Engels, you've got Rio Hatate, you've got Paulo Bernardo, and you've got Luke McCowan. Odin Thiago Holm is very much out the picture. I don't even think he's in the European squad, if I remember correctly. But domestically, he doesn't seem to be featuring. So we'll see what happens there. A lot of the noise just now, though, is that Luke McCowan is due a start. Some folks have said it might be an idea to sit tight on him till Wednesday. We play Dundee next Wednesday, his former club, and he'd have the bit between his teeth for that, no doubt. But what do you think? Is he due a start, or is he more due a start than someone like Paulo Bernardo, who was also really phenomenal, actually, when he came on Wednesday?
I think I'll firstly say that Luke McCowan, I actually thought Celtic were they were chasing the guy in America, I can't remember his name now, for 8-9 million, and then that went quiet, and then we signed Luke McCowan on the last day of the window, and I just thought it was like or we had to get somebody in. And by the way, that wasn't for me not thinking he was a good player. I thought he was excellent for Dundee. And I actually said to a mate of mine, do you know what kind of annoys me a bit? Because we've now taken Dundee's best player and he's not going to play for us that much. And it's kind of ruined Dundee as much as it is, the player. And then to see he's not had any game or any minute on the park that he's not had a positive impact on the game. And he's looking composed. He looks as if he's not there to settle for being a bit part player. And that itself tells me he's got the attitude for it. And you know what? Maybe he does deserve his start now. And I think I've written him down there as starting at the weekend. And I think he deserves it. But also, it's a fresher pair of legs, really, to start the game. And he's proven that he can do it at a domestic level for Dundee. So there's no reason why he can't do it for us. And I just feel like he's a very, very technically good football player who fits the way we play. And I think he does deserve his start over the others. The others have had starts. I think he does deserve it as well as being fresh.
Yeah, I think so. You might have heard Miff from the show that most watchers and listeners will know. Miff's good pal Badger, also a friend of the show. He says that Luke McCowan plays like a Celtic fan who's been given the opportunity to play for Celtic. Very simplistic viewpoint, but it ties in perfectly with what we've seen from Luke McCowan so far. And I think whether it's this weekend or midweek or whenever, he has certainly due a start. He's merited it. He's not come in and get caught in the headlights of the big move. He's at some point he'll have been a wee bit overawed by it, but he's obviously very quickly had to dust himself off and say, okay, now I'm a Celtic player. How do I have an impact on this and how do I remain a Celtic player? And so far, so good in terms of that. Brendan Rodgers was asked specifically about Arne Engels, who's getting a wee bit of stick at this moment in time. Some folks didn't think he stepped up on Wednesday night, and it depends how you view the game. He wasn't cutting Atalanta open with defence splitting passes and cracking shots on goal from 30 yards. That wasn't his job on Wednesday night. His job was very different. It was to be disciplined. It was to muck in with his fellow midfielders and to provide that kind of shield, that protection for the defence. I think there's some stats doing around. I'm not massive on stats, but the headline suggests that the stats bear out they actually had a very important role to play, and he done so. And Brendan Rodgers said in his defence, he signed here as a 20-year-old young man. I think he's now 21. He turned 21 a few weeks after signing. And he's not the finished article, Brendan Rodgers says, nor should he be, nor should anybody be at that age. But it's because he's broken our transfer record. We, myself included, at times think, well, he's your £11 million man. Go do it. Go and be that star. That's not how it works, Brydo. I think you need to give these guys, in the same way that I think a lot of folk, again, myself included, are maybe saying, do you know what, maybe we need to give guys like Austin Trusty a bit of time, Alexbay a bit of time, Arne Engels a bit of time. And I think we'll see the best of these guys moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Engels, these first few games, as soon as it was absolutely on flames when the first few games. It was like, wow, what have we unearthed here? And that's where the £11 million comes from. And then it's like, as the odd game, Dortmund was the start of it, and then maybe just hasn't found his groove. But Celtic haven't really found their groove, not in a great way, the way we were at the start of the season. And he is the guy we're looking at to do the stuff that Matt O'Reilly done. Let's be honest. And Matt O'Reilly was involved in a lot of the game, but predominantly he was the guy that was charged with the final third, find those passes, find those assists, get the goals yourself, and we'll judge you on those numbers. These young guys came in, he started really well. There's a bit of kind of few sticky moments. But anybody that can't see that he's like absolute buckets of ability, like buckets, I don't know. They wouldn't be seeing the same things that I'm seeing. Yes, he hasn't had the opportunity on the ball, especially at midweek, but you're absolutely spot on. It's like there was no passengers. There couldn't be. There just simply can't be at that level. So he's done his job. He's put a big part in the middle of the park and holding off a really good side and allowing us to play where we could. He does not deserve, and being honest, he doesn't deserve any stick at this minute in time because he's not been consistently poor for anywhere near long enough. So I think everyone just needs to, again, just chill out a bit. The guy has got buckets of quality, and we'll see that time and time again. I've no doubt about it at all, in fact. Absolutely not at all.
Yeah, excited to see how he kicks on, and I think most accept that he's maybe just slightly under par just now at times. Not Wednesday night, but just in general, which is fine. But as a young guy, you'll find bits of inconsistency, but over the piece, I've no doubts that he'll come good. Brad Ladd, who's joined the show, he says that he looked quality at the start, Arnie Ingles, but he's probably just had a dip. I would drop him and see what he's made of, and he'll probably kick on and get his place back. And maybe that's the move. Maybe he doesn't start on Sunday, who knows? But if he doesn't, there's quality to slot in. Just very quickly, Bridal, before I move to frontline, then what is your settled midfield three for Sunday?
I think it would be Engels, Callum McGregor, and Luke McGowan for the start.
And not Bernardo for you?
No, but nothing. Not because he's done anything wrong. I just think that Luke McGowan deserves his space, and I think Engels offers something that the other players can't offer. It's quite simple in that regard. They all offer energy. They all, Bernardo in particular, I think he's a really, really good player. But if we're going to rotate the squad and stuff, I think put McGowan in there with the fresh legs with Engels next to him. It's a good balance, I think. I would go with that.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would be too upset if that's what we go with. I'm going to presume that Kuhn and Maeda keep their position. I think they're the two best wingers by a distance at this moment in time. So Kuhn on the right, Maeda on the left. Obviously, the big change from the start during the week was Adam Idah getting the move getting the nod ahead of Kyogo. I think we're okay with that. Different players for different challenges. But do you see Kyogo coming back in for this one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agreed with Idah starting. I wanted him to start against Dortmund. I actually think that he's bought for away games in Europe at that level. I just think we need to respect the teams, and he gives us a platform to play from. It wasn't amazing, but he worked his socks off. He got stuck in, and I think he's just looking for another couple of goals on the bounce, I think, just to get him to get going again. Seems to be he's just not getting that because maybe he's not starting enough games. But Kyogo has to come in because Kyogo does what Kyogo does against teams of Motherwell's level.
Yeah, and that said, Adam Idah played a huge part against Motherwell, didn't he? In the latter part of last season, he came off the bench when the chips were down, scored a brilliant header and another really decent goal to make sure we got all 3 points. So, yeah, I think that would be the move. So just to recap on what you think we'll go with, Bridal, the same back four, Kasper Schmeichel's in goals, Johnson right back, Baye left back, Trusty and Scales in the middle. Slight shake-up in the midfield. McGregor and Engels keep their place, but Luke McGowan potentially getting his first start up top. Kuhn on the right, Maeda on the left, and Kyogo through the middle. I think most would be fairly happy with that, but it's great to have those options. And I think Brendan Rodgers said that in his presser again. As a coach, you just want to have options. And with the potential of CCV coming back and Greg Taylor coming back and those midfield options we've spoken of, the option of Idah or Kyogo up top, there's some decent depth in there to give him options on the day if required. What about Motherwell, Bridal? Always fairly well set up, fairly well drilled, and they won't be rolling over and letting us just turn up and steal the points. What do you think of the challenge that they'll bring?
Yeah, they'll be physical as they kind of have been under this manager. I had a quick kind of look at a few of the results this afternoon, and I've watched it. Listen, I've seen all the highlights of all the games this year. They got a really good result against St Mirren. Obviously, the key players is obviously Lennon Muller is the main player. I thought Celtic might have made a move for him in the summer, but obviously we didn't. We went for Luke McGowan instead. Perhaps just one more season, perhaps. Maybe that's where Celtic are wanting to see if we can keep doing it. But again, a really good player. They have lost a lot of quality for their level. Theo Bair left. They also obviously lost their goalie. He's away to Rangers, Liam Muller. And they also lost the guy, Blair Spittle, who I think is a really tidy young player. And I thought Hearts done a lot of good business with the boy Danda. And then obviously Spittle from Motherwell. So, yeah, they'll play. I mean, they tend to try and play three at the back, but I'd imagine against us that'll end up dropping into a five at the back. So Celtic will need to really, really quick with the ball and just keep them moving around and just keep that foot in the gas and hopefully go off to a flyer, because that makes these games so much easier and so much more enjoyable. But there's been times we've got to grind it out, and against a team like Motherwell, they're going to be honest, hard-working, and they're going to be very physical. I think they've had a couple of red cards already this year, but we just need to be on it. And we need to be prepared to fight for the ball and in the position, and then use it as good as we have been.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Motherwell get some kind of pretty decent players across the board. And I think a lot of folks, just generally in Scottish football, are very excited about Lennon Muller. I think he's a real talent, and I'm amazed actually, beyond surprised that Celtic and or Rangers haven't made a move. Maybe they have. Maybe there's discussions behind the scenes and there's something set to happen, or maybe he sees his future, beyond Scotland at this young age. He's only 18, 19, but a seriously talented player. I just want to ask you about a front man that plays for Motherwell. I think he's Greek-Australian. You remind me his name? You got that?
You can absolutely bolt. I looked at that and I just said, the big Greek fella, he might be 3'4" or something, but he'll be known as the big Greek guy with the big name, Dipadopoulos or something.
Yeah, so I think I'll give him my best here. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos. I've probably butchered that to death, but he seems to start most games for them, alongside Robinson up top. You've got familiar names like Lennon Miller, Stephen O'Donnell, Andy Halliday that we all know, and various others. And I think it will be a challenge. Actually, last time out, they lost at home to Dundee, which, based on their form, was a bit of a surprise. They'd won, 3 in the bounce up to that point. Then they lose 1-0 at home to Dundee. But table-wise, they're sitting in a decent position. I think they're 5th in the table, but just 3 points behind Rangers, who languish in 3rd position. So I think Motherwell was on 13 points, Rangers on 16. And as we know, yourself and Aberdeen out front on 22. The other side of it, Brydo, which I nearly failed to mention, is that Aberdeen play on Saturday. So they play Dundee United at tea time on Saturday at Pittodrie. A huge opportunity to go top of the table for the first time in who knows, in terms of Aberdeen's recent history. And actually, this is match day 9. It'd be very unusual for Celtic to not be top of the tree on match day 9, generally speaking, over the last number of years as well. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in a unique position. And whilst most folks are, looking closer at what Rangers are doing, you cannot dismiss this Aberdeen side under Jimmy Tellin.
No, absolutely not. And we were very complimentary before we played them and respectful, and we're very respectful and complimentary after that. And that's the right way to be, I think. I think we've got to look at that. I think you cheekily asked me, did I see I was going to be in a title race with them? And I'm like, I didn't want to just go, no, absolutely not. They're going to fall away. And then somebody will bring that out in Twitter or something in 8 months' time when Aberdeen lift the title. No, I think they're doing really, really well. The new manager's got them organised. And yeah, if they, I expect them to beat Dundee United. And I expect them to kind of keep that going, especially with one eye on the Wednesday night against Rangers. So, yeah, I think they're riding the crest of a wave at the minute, Aberdeen. So it's exciting. It's something else to keep your eye on, really, whereas we've not really had that. And it'd be very unusual for Celtic to not be top of the league when we've not lost a game.
Yeah.
We've only drew a game, and that was against Aberdeen. So, yeah, long season. We know that. Even last year when Rangers were, looking a lot better than us, at a certain point, and we're thinking, wait a minute, there's might not be enough games coming up here. And then just when you need to put the foot down in the throttle, Celtic done it and managed to mould and go over the line. We've got our act together and kind of romped our way in the final few hurdles. So, yep, I think Aberdeen will have a wee period where it gets a bit bumpy, and that's when Celtic will take away. But let's not take away anything from them so far. They've done really, really well.
Yeah, I'm not too sure they're going to fall away. I really like their manager. I watched him today speaking again. He's got something about him, and he's definitely instilled huge confidence in his side. What we'll do, Brydo, just before I come to you for your scoreline prediction, anyone in the comments who wants to let us know what they think, please do so. I'll try and read a few out before the end of the piece. So, as I say, Sunday, 3 o'clock kickoff, Motherwell at Fir Park. But I also like the fact that there's something different happening in the top half of the table at this moment in time. We've mentioned Dundee United. I also expect Aberdeen to beat them, but United are sitting in 4th for the first time in a long time. They're just a point behind Rangers, and Motherwell that we face, as I say, are just 3 points behind Rangers. And it's a fairly kind of tight wee group that between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Obviously, Celtic and Aberdeen have stretched it a wee bit, and then there's a gap further back to Dundee, who are on 9 points. But there's exciting stuff going on, and it's, for want of a better expression, it's a new narrative for Scottish football. The two, Celtic and Rangers out in front. As much as we enjoy that and we enjoy dominating that fixture and those title races, generally speaking, something different and something fresh, I think, is good for all of us. So I'll come to you for your scoreline prediction, Brydo. No easy game. We've seen some tough ones against Motherwell at Fir Park as recently as last season. But how do you think it's all going to play out?
I'd got Celtic winning 3-1, and the main reason for that is it's going to be after the European game. We have seen it time and time again. It can be quite difficult, a bit sluggish at times. It's the last thing you need at Fir Park is to give the Motherwell support something to kind of energise them. But I just think we'll have too much quality, and there's also I think with the 5 subs, obviously, I just think we've got so much quality to bring off the bench. And maybe in previous moments we haven't had that, but we showed the last time we brought Ida off the bench. Carter Vickers came off the bench, and Celtic all of a sudden turned the game around and won it. So, I just think we'll have too much for them. I also I'm not crazy confident domestically when it's Trusty and Scales at the back. I know they had a great moment midweek, but obviously explained why I felt that happened. I just think when our fullbacks are pushing forward and there's a bit more exposed, I just feel that perhaps we're just not quite there with that pairing. So I can maybe see Motherwell getting a goal, especially at home. So I'll say 3-1 and hope that's the case, get the points, and tell you that I have a mystic glass ball that I look at every week, because I get absolutely none of the scores right.
You've not been looking closely enough at that ball by the sounds of it. You mentioned Adam Ida and CCV coming off the bench for that win last season. Was it 3-1 eventually?
Yeah.
The scoreline. You could see the very same thing happen again. There's every chance that CCV and Adam Ida will be on the bench on Sunday. So who knows? It could be a case of things repeating themselves. There's a few scoreline predictions coming in. So Lubo's left peg, he's gone for 4-0. Thinks confidence will be high after midweek. Mazar thinks it'll be a close game. Usually is versus Stuart Kettlewell sides, and he's going for a tight 2-1 to Celtic. The Doc has joined us, G-Doc. He thinks 3-1 Celtic, but I'm going to go alongside Paul Brady. Paul Brady has gone for a hard-earned 2-0, and that's where I'm at. But I think it'll be something of that nature. You know, it's different levels. You've got to adapt to different sides, but I don't think Celtic will run over the top of Motherwell side. This Motherwell side, as much as we'd love to see it. But your final thoughts again, like all the games just now, that they're there to be enjoyed, they're there to look forward to. Brendan Rodgers said that. We've had a brilliant start to the season. I think, did you use the term blip for Dortmund? I'm going to call it a blip. You can take Dortmund aside though. Everything else has been pretty good. There's been an include last Saturday, a really exciting 2-each draw with Aberdeen, and various other pretty strong performances into the mix. So, but your final thoughts ahead of this one?
Just looking forward to it. Like I said at the top of the show, the games at Fir Park over the years, have brought some serious excitement. One particular moment not so good, but certainly lots of other good ones. And I just think it's another chance for Celtic to show their quality against a fairly organised, decent physical team. And it's just great. I just think that, I'd love it to run away with the league and all the rest of it, but it's still early and there's still new players bedding in and we're getting to see it. And I think that still brings that excitement about, there's no monotony about it. Wednesday's Wednesday, Sunday will be Sunday. And I just think, and even the different players that it's great to debate over. There's no straight up 11 that everybody can say, that has to be the team. Everybody has a reasonable debate about who they think. And I think that's a good spot to be in. That means there's enough quality to create different opinions, which is great as well. So really looking forward to it and hope we get the job done.
Yeah, just as you were talking there, Brydo, it dawned on me that we play on Wednesday against Dundee, 30th of October, more or less Halloween. Are you going to come in fancy dress for the show? Is that your plan?
I'm always there to please. I've came as a Green Brigade tonight.
Looking good.
Let's see
what you turn up with on Wednesday. Brydo, thanks for joining us here on a Friday night. Thanks to everyone who continues to join us in the live and to make their comments and bring their questions. It's always really appreciated. And thanks for those who continue to listen and podcast. We are back on Sunday, shortly after the final whistle with the final whistle show. But in the meantime, from myself and Brydo, thanks for joining us. We'll see you all again soon.